if you've learned to delegate to humans in a pre-AI era, it's less of a cognitive leap to then say, okay, I'm going to delegate work to AI.
So, Rebecca, your research has actually found that the people who delegate well are actually most likely to adopt AI. And this holds true across gender, role, function within an organization. Why is that the case? And how do companies get more people to adopt it?
It's so interesting because what we're seeing is AI adoption is deeply psychological. Often we think mostly about the technical aspect, but what we're seeing is there are high levels of resistance and fear and uncertainty within our organizations. And so it makes sense that depending on what mental model you're approaching the technology with, that's going to disproportionately influence how we adopt it. And when we think about delegation in particular, well, if you've learned to delegate to humans in a pre-AI era, it's less of a cognitive leap to then say, okay, I'm going to delegate work to AI. And obviously, certain people within our organizations are more accustomed to delegation. Seniority level influences that. Executives more likely to delegate than managers or individual contributors. But we also see it in terms of gender. Men typically are more accustomed to that delegation muscle than women. And it underscores the importance of training not being one size fits all. We need to meet our employees where they're at in terms of those mental models and the natural resistance that many people feel associated with the technology.
It's really insightful the way you framed it. We're talking about mental models and that delegation muscle. Your research, and again, I'm citing it because it's so unique, found that AI adaptation spreads peer to peer more effectively than it does from the top down. And yet, this is how companies actually want it to spread from the top down.
Yes. It's one of the biggest pitfalls organizations fall into. We see so many executives try to drive AI adoption through memos, top down mandates telling employees to use AI or else. And that is not how this technology spreads. It's not how any technology spreads, but in particular, one with that inherent level of fear and resistance. We know employees don't adopt the technology because the big boss at the top of the org chart tells them to, right? They adopt it because people who they trust and people who they see themselves in tell them, or moreover, show them why change matters. And what we start to see with top down change in particular is this symbolic use of the technology. Sometimes we call it AI theater, right? It's very easy when you get these top down mandates to click the tool a bunch of times and show that you're using the technology as opposed to meaningfully using it to drive key business objectives forward.
You mentioned AI theater, and there's a lot of shows in this AI theater. In particular, there are these flashy demos, all these lights, sometimes talking agents. But how does a company know what is theater and what will actually deliver real value?
It's hard, and I think it needs to be looked at from multiple different dimensions. One of the clearest signs is around metrics and measures of success, because what we know is metrics don't just assess behavior, right? They actually drive behavior. And if we anchor our metrics around superficial aspects of AI adoption, in particular clicks of the tool, or we're seeing this token maxing phenomenon right now. If we optimize for outcomes versus outputs, we're going to get much more meaningful action within our organizations. And so if you're measuring AI adoption strictly by efficiency, lines of code written, tokens used, right, we're going to incentivize certain types of behaviors. We need to have a handle on those types of metrics, but we consistently see in the most effective organizations, they're looking more holistically and they're measuring the human aspects of the change just as much as they're measuring efficiency and some of those historically productivity driven metrics.
Optimizing for output. Thank you so
Yes.
much.
Thank you so much.